Earlier this month, tensions between the United States and Canada reached a critical point when President Donald Trump imposed significant tariffs on Canadian goods. He defended this decision by pointing to concerns over illegal immigration and the growing fentanyl crisis in the U.S. As part of the policy, all Canadian imports would be subjected to a 25% tariff, with energy products facing a slightly lower 10% tax. These tariffs were set to take effect on February 4, 2025. Canada responded swiftly. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau retaliated by imposing a 25% tariff on $30 billion worth of American goods, including beer, bourbon, fruit juices, clothing, sports equipment, and household appliances. But Trudeau warned that this was only the beginning. After a public review period, the scope of these tariffs could be expanded to cover an additional $125 billion in U.S. products. Just as tensions seemed to be escalating further, a breakthrough was reached following intense negotiations. Trump and Trudeau agreed to delay the tariffs for 30 days. In exchange, Canada committed to bolstering its border security by appointing a fentanyl czar and working closely with U.S. officials to create a joint task force aimed at combating drug smuggling. While this temporary reprieve provided some relief, reactions within Canada were mixed. Some viewed it as a necessary compromise, while others worried that it would not be enough to prevent long-term economic harm. Despite the delay, concerns about the potential consequences of these tariffs remained high. Economists warned that if they were eventually enforced, they could lead to increased prices for consumers, disruptions in supply chains, and strain on the historically strong trade relationship between the two nations. Faced with this uncertainty, Canada began exploring new trade opportunities, particularly in Asia. Alberta, the heart of Canada's oil and natural gas industry, took the lead in devising strategies to diversify its exports beyond the U.S. to reduce reliance on a single market. With its growing energy demands, Japan became a key focus. To accelerate this transition, Trudeau called for an economic summit, bringing together business leaders, policy experts, and labor unions to discuss ways to decrease Canada's dependence on American trade. Part of the plan involved enhancing internal commerce and reconsidering previously abandoned energy projects to facilitate the export of Canadian oil and gas to international buyers. At the same time, public sentiment shifted dramatically. Recent polling indicated that 90% of Canadians now supported reducing economic dependence on the U.S., a significant increase from before the tariff threats surfaced. Canadian businesses also began adapting to the shifting trade landscape. Suncor Energy, one of Canada's largest oil producers, reassured investors that it was better positioned than most to navigate potential U.S. tariffs. Unlike its competitors, which rely almost entirely on selling oil to the U.S., Suncor had access to global markets via the Trans Mountain Pipeline, which allows it to ship its products through British Columbia's coast. Despite these efforts, Canada's deep economic ties to the U.S. would not be easy to untangle. For decades, the American market has been the primary customer for Canadian oil and gas, shaping trade policies and energy strategies. Now, with the looming threat of tariffs, Canada is being forced to rethink its economic future. For years, Canada has heavily relied on the United States as its primary buyer of oil and natural gas. In fact, nearly all of its crude exports have been directed south of the border, with Alberta playing a central role in this trade. In 2022 alone, Canada exported $22.4 billion worth of natural gas to the U.S., highlighting the depth of their energy relationship. However, this dependence comes with vulnerabilities. With the U.S. hinting at new tariffs on Canadian energy products, concerns have surged within Canada's energy sector. The potential for higher taxes on oil and gas exports has increased pressure on Canadian leaders to seek alternative markets beyond North America. With tensions rising, Canada has turned its attention to Asia, particularly Japan, as a promising alternative trade partner. The Asia-Pacific region's energy demand is soaring, and Japan, as one of the world's top importers of liquefied natural gas, LNG, is constantly in need of stable suppliers. In 2023, Japan imported around 66 million tons of LNG, second only to China. While Japan is making efforts to expand its use of nuclear and renewable energy, the country's overall power needs are expected to rise due to the expansion of energy-intensive industries such as data centers. If clean alternatives like hydrogen and ammonia fail to scale quickly, Japan's demand for LNG will likely continue growing, an opportunity that Canada is eager to capitalize on. Canada holds a distinct advantage over other major LNG exporters. Its west coast is significantly closer to Japan than the U.S. Gulf Coast, meaning shipments from Vancouver to Tokyo take approximately 11 days. In contrast, U.S. exports must often pass through the Panama Canal, adding time, costs, and logistical complications. Moreover, Canadian LNG is recognized for being 40% less carbon-intensive than U.S. LNG, making it a more attractive option for countries focused on reducing emissions. Recognizing this potential, Alberta's Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rebecca Schultz, has been actively strengthening energy ties with Japan. During a recent visit to Tokyo, she met with major industry players, including Japan's largest LNG buyers, and toured key infrastructure sites. Her discussions centered around how Alberta could play a role in securing Japan's future energy supply. A major milestone in this growing partnership is the LNG Canada project, a $40 billion export terminal under construction in Kitimat, British Columbia. It represents the largest energy investment in Canadian history and is backed by global energy giants such as Shell, Petronas, Mitsubishi, and Kogas. Once operational in mid-2025, the facility will process and export 14 million tons of LNG annually, with plans to double output in its second phase. Japanese companies are already deeply involved, with Mitsubishi holding a 15% stake, underscoring Japan's commitment to securing Canadian energy supplies. Beyond LNG Canada, several other ambitious energy projects are gaining momentum. The Woodfibre LNG project in Squamish, British Columbia, is prioritizing sustainability by utilizing electric power rather than traditional LNG processing, significantly reducing emissions. Meanwhile, Cedar LNG, a joint venture led by the Haisla Nation, is pioneering indigenous-led energy development with a focus on low-emission technologies and electrification. Additionally, Kasi Leesoms LNG, developed in partnership with the Nisga'a Nation, aims to be one of Canada's largest LNG projects, utilizing floating LNG technology to improve efficiency and environmental sustainability. One major advantage all these projects share is their strategic location on Canada's west coast. This provides significantly shorter shipping routes to Asian markets, particularly Japan, compared to LNG facilities on the U.S. Gulf Coast, which often require longer transit times and expensive passage through the Panama Canal. By reducing both travel time and costs, Canadian LNG exporters are positioning themselves as strong competitors in the global market. Beyond energy, Canada and Japan share a long-standing trade relationship that has steadily expanded over the years. As of 2023, Japan ranked as Canada's fourth largest trading partner, with bilateral trade totaling $36.5 billion Canadian dollars. Canada's exports to Japan, valued at $15.8 billion Canadian dollars, include natural resources, agricultural goods, and minerals, while imports from Japan, amounting to $20.7 billion Canadian dollars, consist of high-tech machinery, vehicles, and electronics. This trade partnership is further reinforced by agreements such as the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, which has helped lower trade barriers and expand market access between the two nations. As Canada continues strengthening its LNG sector and Japan's energy needs remain high, both countries appear well positioned to deepen their economic ties in the years ahead. Their partnership, rooted in mutual economic interests and historical collaboration, is set to evolve as they navigate the challenges and opportunities of a rapidly shifting global landscape.